Hey guys, and welcome back. This is Suapix with another part of my workshop, How to Fold. And in this video, we are going to take a look at the turn. And I've selected two scenarios, both on the same board, but at different lines. And we will be taking a look at what hands to fold, and what we can, not only which hands to fold, but also what can we learn from that. What are the patterns there a little bit? And we will first start off with the easy one, maybe not. Maybe easy isn't the right word, but like the less spectacular one in my opinion. And the board is, as you can see, it's a king 9-5, and the turn is a 4. And the action was, or what happened basically, or the scenario is, we open raise preflop from the cutoff, checked on the button, checked to the button bets on the flop. We check call, I believe against a half pot size bet, and then the turn is a 4. On the 4, we check our entire range, and our opponent goes ahead and makes a pot size bet. And now we have to decide basically what hands do we call against that. So what hands do we call against a double barrel? And well, we should in general start like with the strongest hands, and we see a set obviously never folding. Even if we have like the shittiest bottom set or whatever, we are never folding. Also, if we filter for two pair with a king, we see basically also never folding. There's some stuff mixed in here, but like also it's mixed, and it could be like at higher iterations per node. Maybe this number would even go up more, or like all of these hands would basically disappear. But you see it's like 0% frequency. It says it up here. So never folding kings up. But does it change if we look at two pair without a king? And actually, if we start looking at two pair without a king, we can start folding. And even there's a hand in here like 9-8-7-4, so two pair and a gut shot. That hand is mixed, so it's pretty close between betting and not between betting. It's pretty mixed between folding and calling, and so the EV is pretty close. So we see two pair without a king. Like the king is super essential. We want to block kings here. We want to block king 9 when considering to call, and so the weakest of two pairs can go for the fold here. And even there's some pretty surprising ones in here, like a queen 5-4-3, like 5-5 flush draw, 5 and 4 two pair. You just go ahead and check fold against a pot size bet because your two pair is not very good. Your flush draw is not very good, basically, and both together, like it's okay, but it's not going to be enough to call against a pot size bet. Two pair is basically where we start folding. So, and we can maybe even like, if we exclude spades here, we see half of the two pairs are calling, half of the two pairs are folding. The two pair with an open-ender is never a fold, it looks like. And most two pairs with a gut shot will also be a fold, although not 8-6-5-4, like the, yeah, even with a nut gut shot and a spade blocker, we're going for the check fold. So it looks like we need the open ender 9-6-5-3, 9-7-6-5. So two pair with an open ender. I mean, we can see. Let's filter for the gut shot. We see, yeah, gut shot is actually mostly calling. But yeah, two pair with a gut shot, two pair with an open ender. Even without a king, we're looking to call mostly, and then folding the weakest ones of those. Well, what other hand classes do we have? We have overpairs, of course. So if we, and we also want to exclude the strongest hands, of course, because we know two pairs and sets are almost always continuing, and we see we're folding half of our overpairs. I mean, overpairs are just aces on this board, but even like aces with like a pair blocker and the ace of spades, or aces with a king blocker. These hands are going to be folds. Yes, we have a strong blocker here with a king, for example. But that's not going to be enough. Like the runouts are going to be so unfortunate for our hand. Like we are not really happy about like any runout, even like a jack. I mean, a jack is okay, but a spade is terrible. 6, 7, 8 is not really great. A 10, I mean, we have a blocker on a 10, but it doesn't help us a lot. So lots of bad runouts, and our opponent can also he will have very decent equity against our hand, even if he's bluffing. So no reason for us to continue here with our weakest overpair. So make sure you're folding your weakest overpairs. Although I have to say, or like that being said, I think most of you guys will get that right, and maybe some of you guys will even be overfolding with some of the two pairs that we've seen. But yeah, I don't think this spot or this situation is super far away from what you guys are actually playing in game. I think the more important thing, or where the mistakes start, is basically on the flop, like getting the check calling range right, getting the check raising range right, and so on, and not having too many weak hands in the check calling range, basically. And yeah, that's I think where the mistakes happen. But here, like with the overpairs, I don't think too many of you guys will go crazy. Of course, if we have a flush draw, we are never folding with our overpair. We can see what is if we have a straight draw. If we have a very weak gut shot like ace ace 3, ace ace deuce, we can also fold even with the ace of spades. There's no like floating out of position here with the ace of spades just in order to bluff spades. I mean, there's some ace of spades will call. If we exclude spades, but we need some more backup. So the wrap or the open ender, or maybe a king blocker and a gut shot. Like, we need multiple components to work together here in order to justify such a light call out of position, such a float, basically, you could say. Yeah, so that's what we need. Now, let's take a look at the draws. That's maybe a little bit more interesting as well. And we see we're folding a third of our flush draws, even hands as strong as like 3-3 deuce deuce here. But that being said, this hand is actually a very low frequency check. Actually, no, it's not a low frequency check. It's a low frequency fold. That's what I wanted to say. Because it's only folding like 3% of the time. But you see, it is pretty close with this combo. And if we see this, I mean, again, the flush draw is super low. We don't block a lot of value here with our 3-3 deuce deuce. That's the reason. And we see again like low 2 pair with a flush draw even going for the check fold, or pair flush draw gut shot also going for the check fold here. And I think this is where it gets kind of trouble. I could see some people overfolding with these flush draw hands, and I could see people definitely underfolding with these hands. Like they are like, oh, gut shot flush draw, let's call and suck out against kings. But we are supposed to be folding these hands. And I mean, we can also look at ace king without 2 pair, without a set, and let's say without aces as well. And we see ace king is pretty weak on the turn. We have plenty of better hands to continue. We even fold some like ace king with gut shot. So if we add a gut shot here, we see mostly we're going to call, but some of them are also going to fold. Ace king a3 is not strong enough, even if we have the king blocker and the gut shot. It's, again, the runouts are too bad for us, and there's not much we can do. Same with the ace king 10 deuce, ace king queen deuce. Yeah, those gut shots are not going to be enough. We want to have the higher gut shots, maybe like ace king 6-8. Let's filter for that, and we can see ace king 6-8 is always going to call here, no matter what, because this gut shot is to the nuts. The ace deuce, ace 3 is never drawing to the nuts. That's kind of a problem. And also, if we have 8-6, we have some more equity against hands like king 5, king 4, for example. Yeah, that definitely helps. So this is kind of the threshold. Like the weakest ace king with a low gut shot going to be check folds, and then the better ones are going to be check calls. And again, here we can see like the same concept. So that pure hand strength is not the most important thing. It is about having the potential to improve to a hand that can value bet, or that has a very decent hand, or that has to make a nice hand on the river, basically, which is a straight here with the 8-6. It is more important than absolute hand strength. And absolute hand strength, for example, we saw some two pairs like 9-5, 5-4 are folding, even sometimes with a flush draw against a pot size bet on the turn. So blockers definitely super important, and playability as well. Always keep that in mind when deciding what to do with your hand. Yeah, basically the hands that were supposed to be folds on the flop, or the hand classes that were folding the flop with a high frequency, but then they sometimes have like a low frequency call, like queen, 10 deuce. So queens with a gut shot, backdoor flush draw. Though, like, the weakest hands that we call on the flop are always the prime candidates to fold on the turn, unless we picked up a draw on the turn, of course. This should be kind of standard. But talking about kind of standard, as I said, I think most people will get this kind of right if they get with this range to the turn. It is maybe another thing what we could talk about is, okay, what hands are we actually check raising here in this situation, and what hands are we? What are we looking for in check calls? And I mean, we kind of touched the check calls a little bit. I don't want to go into the check raises now because that's not really the topic of this video. But we will take a look at the next spot now and talk a little bit about. I mean, it has something to do with raising, and yeah, let's just take a look at the other spot. And the other spot is basically the same board. In fact, it is exactly the same board, and it is now from the in positions perspective. What do we do against a check raise? So we are in position, we bet the flop, button against cutoff, and we get this beautiful blank on the turn, and we decide to go for a pot size bet here 52% of the time. And now we get raised, we get check raised, and now we have to evaluate, okay, which hands can we continue, which hands are we supposed to be folding here? And I think if we look at the folds, those folds are not like super surprising. But what is the most surprising about a lot of these folds is that these hands were bets in the first place. And I think that's a very good hand, or a very nice way also to study your game, because I think a lot of people, how they study their game is they just look up single hands. They played a hand, they wanted to know, or they want to know if they played it correct, and then they put it into PLO Trainer and check their hand, and then they see, oh, I should have played my hand like this, or I actually played it correct, and so on. But also always try to look at how should other hands have played, and so on. And very often, so for these, I like to look at the bet folds and the check raise folds, for example, like putting in some bets or actions where you put in a bet or a raise and then you fold it, and looking at that folding range gives you a very nice overview of like how light you're supposed to be betting. Because very often if we look at the hands that you want to bet, you look at, okay, what kind of top sets do I want to bet, maybe what kind of nut flush draws do I want to bet, and so on. But you get a very narrow perspective, in my opinion. And so take a closer look at those folding ranges, which we will do now in a minute, and you get a better idea on how the spot is played and what hands are you actually supposed to be betting. And you will probably see that you miss on quite a lot of these bets. And so, for example, again, first hand striking here 3-3 deuce deuce, and we can see 3-3 deuce deuce is going to be always a bet fold. And we can, I've put up Monk Solver here, and we can quickly check how often this is a bet in the first place, and we can see it's betting more often than not here. If we add spades, we can see it actually likes checking back a little bit more because it doesn't like getting check raised too much. And to be honest, that's a little bit surprising to me. Like open-ender with a flush draw, like out of position, I can kind of understand it, but in position, I probably would have flicked in the call here and then tried to play, and then probably try to bluff many rivers if check to. But yeah, that's a different story. That's what I mean. Like, it's looking at that stuff helps me to be disciplined and to remember, oh, okay, you're actually supposed to fold these hands. Again, I think we could start off with like looking at the strongest hands. So let's look at a set, and we see we're never bet folding a set here on this board. There could be some spots on other boards where you actually can fold some sets, but not on this board. This board is way too draw heavy, and lots of like other hands that have high value that our opponent could be check raising, that are worse than a set. So we're never bet folding a set here, always going to put the stack in. Now we can take a look at two pairs, and with two pairs we actually see 40% of our two pairs are going to be bet folds, and you can see the top hand even is top two pair. And so let's say we have a two pair. I'm not sure if sets are included here, probably not. A two pair without a king again, and we see it's 72% bet folding. If we exclude a flush draw as well, we're folding 100%. But if we include a flush draw, we see it's actually folding 52% of the time as well. And look at these hands, and I think this is really what's interesting. Ace Jack 5-4, Ace 9-6-5, Queen 6-5-4, maybe not so interesting, but definitely here two pair nut flush draw, high frequency fold. And I mean, of course, we will have to look at how often are these hands bets in the first place, and if we filter for Ace Jack with Ace of Spades, we see this hand is actually going to bet 100% of the time, and then it is going to bet fold 100% of the time. Very surprising to me. It kind of makes sense. I mean, when the 5-4 is not worth anything against the check raises. The only thing it does, maybe it blocks some of the check raises. Maybe the nut flush draw also blocks some of the check raises, so it makes it less likely that we are getting check raised. But if we are betting this combo, it's just super likely our opponent has kings, and we basically just have a bare nut flush draw against that, and that's not going to be enough to continue. But I think, again, here, very important to take this away. It's like, and that's not even like a low frequency play here. If we look at nut flush draws in general, like half of the nut flush draws we're betting are going to be bet folds here on the turn. And we can take a look at here how often we're going to bet with Ace of Spades, and we see 70% of the time we are betting, and out of these 70%, half of them are going to be bet folds. So this is quite fascinating, I would say, and I think that's very counterintuitive to a lot of players, because over the last years you've kind of learned, okay, you want to realize equity, you don't want to be bet folding, you don't want to bet fold good hands usually, so you kind of maybe want to check back with a nut flush draw. But here you actually see you go for an aggressive bet, even with hands like, look at this Ace Jack 10-3 here, double gut shot nut flush draw going for the bet fold. I mean, this is kind of hard to believe, to be honest. I guess it's really, we're up against kings so often, or like, and if not kings, our opponent is going to have like two pair with a flush draw or just blocking some of our outs. That could be another case. But yeah, we definitely are going to bet fold quite a bit. And if we exclude sets, we see it goes up to 57%. And if we exclude two pairs as well, it goes up to 65, yeah. We prefer having these live outs, like the top pair blocker is very important, ace king. I mean, let's see. With a king, we're actually still going to bet fold 30% of the time. Ace king 6-2s, that's also, it's fascinating really what Moncresov is doing here. And of course, you should check these hands first, like how often they're going to be bets in the first place. But we've seen like nut flush draws in general are going to bet very often. And so I could see these hands being very high frequency bets. And this is kind of, even if we're talking about folding here, but now hopefully now you understand what I mean, why I think looking into the folding is so important. Because by looking into the folds, we learn what to bet as well. And yeah, this is super interesting. Another thing we should take a look at is the two pairs. Two pair without a set, and let's say with a king. And let's say with king 9. And if we look at king 9, we see we are going to bet call 90% of the time. and the weakest ones are going to be bet folds. Even here with a gut shot, but we can see it's a mixed frequency. In general, I would say you can't be too wrong. Just like bet folding the weakest of top 2 pairs in this spot, because I also think most people's check raising range on this turn, like they will check raise quite a bit tighter even than Monker Solver, and Monker Solver also is not crazy loose in this situation. I mean, I think we're looking at like a let's see, 10% check raising frequency. Yeah. So that's not crazy loose. It's reasonable, and I think, but I still think people, humans, will check raise less frequently than that, because they will check raise too many of their strong hands on the flop, in my opinion. But if you agree, I mean, if you don't agree with that statement, or you think the people in your pool play differently, you have to find another way how to play it then. So with the 9, we see King 9, and also another reason why we're so rarely bet folding King 9 is because the weakest ones of our King 9s are also going to be more of, they're going to be high frequency checkbacks on the flop. So when we are betting King 9 on the flop and then we get a blank turn, our King 9s are in general very decent. But if we exclude a 9 here, so this is basically now 2 pair with a king, but not with a 9. So King 5 and King 4, and we see we're bet folding 46% of the time. And yeah, again, quite a bit of bet folding going on. And if you can see again 2 pair with a flush draw, even going for the bet fold. And you can, if we just go for a king without a set and without a 2 pair, you can imagine there's even more bet folding going on. So those are the hands we're looking to bet fold. Top pairs, weak 2 pairs, and then a bunch of nut flush draws actually. And we could also look at a random flush draw without the ace of spades. And we see this is only check folding 38% of the time, whereas the nut flush draw was check folding 53% of the time. So if we have the non-nut flush draw, we're actually continuing more often. And I think the reason is if we have a non-nut flush draw, we will more often have like other backup and maybe a better draw to go with our hand. And that's probably the reason, because again, if we have not a strong flush like the non-nut flush draw on the flop, we need more other reasons in order to stab on the flop and to not check back. So this makes our non-nut flush draws a little bit like the hands that are betting without the nut flush draw, but that are a flush draw, are a little bit stronger on the flop. Same as with the top 2 pairs, for example, we're only going to bet the stronger ones on the flop. Yeah, I think that's quite clear. I considered taking a look at a 3-bet pot as well, out of position. If you remember the Queen 4-3 board from the flop episode, look at that we had, in the talking about the flop folds basically. But I think this would be too much for this video, and I think, and the strategy, I looked at the strategy and it was actually pretty simple. And most things, or the patterns, are actually quite similar compared to the flop. So if you have a dry overpair that went for bet on the flop, you probably have to check fold on a blank turn. A lot of people are not doing that in 3-bet pots, and for a good reason usually, because also in position players usually tend to fast play too much, and therefore their range is weaker when they call on a blank, and you can get away with betting more of your overpairs. But yeah, maybe I will make an additional video about this. But I thought like the stuff that was in there was like, except like maybe check folding the overpairs, which people are not doing, and but other than that, it was mostly just potting the turn and getting it in. And I think that's kind of how you guys play anyway. And I wanted to show you, I prefer to showing you this bet folding on the turn for the in position player, which is really interesting. The out of position, by the way, after check raising, he's never check raised folding, so nothing to see there. I only gave him a pot size check raise. Maybe you could argue a different size, but like I think pot size is fine, and it is also most definitely the size you will see in game when it comes to turn check raising. Some people choose smaller sizes on the flop, but usually on the turn on such a dynamic board, it's going to be a pot size check raise for most people. Yeah, I hope you could take something away here. And again, feel free to dive deeper into this if you have Monka Solver yourself. I think I will, like in my last workshop, I might add these PLO trainer files to the workshop or to the videos, and so you will be able to practice these spots yourself. Take a look at what you're dealing with here, with what ranges, basically what to fold on the turn. And yeah, good luck with that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the last part of how to fold. This was SuperPicks for the PLO Mastermind. Bye bye.